Hey, everybody, welcome to the Gateway to Grace call. My name's Elizabeth Tobin, and every month I do a repatterning call where we look at relationships through the lens of our family patterns. And today, as I was preparing for this session, I received a text from one of my clients who I had worked with in a deep dive program as she was preparing to be married. And her program ended right around the same time that she actually got married. And so I just asked her, well, how's married life for you? And she said, well, it's an interesting journey. She said, we both feel like we're pioneers of our lineage because neither me or my spouse have had very positive role models in relationship. And that really struck me. It's like, yes, that's, I think a lot of people, although they may not be able to articulate it like that, but a lot of people are the pioneers in their lineage in how to do relationship in a different way. And we also come up against our family patterns as we try to do relationship in a more healthy way, in a more interdependent versus codependent way. I was at a funeral this weekend. My great aunt, who would have been 105 years old next month, passed away, and she lived a very long and full life. And one of the things that stood out for me during the service was the emphasis that people in her life had put on her selfless service, that she was a kind, generous, loving woman who really sacrificed for her family, for her community. And it got me thinking about the sort of a spectrum, the balance of where selfless service that's healthy sort of moves into sort of a self-sacrificing martyr kind of behavior. And I'm not saying that she exhibited that, but it was just listening to the eulogy. It sort of made me think about that and how a lot of us have been conditioned to value the martyr, the self-sacrifice in a way that isn't necessarily wholly coherent. And part of the challenge of being in relationship, being these pioneers of our lineage, wanting to do relationship differently in a less codependent, more interdependent way, is how do we navigate that spectrum of selfless service, unconditional love, giving wholeheartedly, without moving into the non-coherent end of the spectrum of being the martyr and sacrificing ourself, losing ourself in the relationship. I hear from a lot of people that have been in relationship and have moved out of relationship that are nervous about getting back into another relationship because they were afraid that they're going to lose their sense of self in the relationship. And I think it all ties into this idea of the martyr and the self-sacrifice and the codependent aspect. It's very easy to focus on our partner as a way to avoid our own deepest needs. Because a lot of us have grown up in families where our true needs didn't get met, whether it was intentional or not. um, we learn from a very early age when our needs are not getting attended to in the way that we need them to be. We learn from a very early age to sort of disconnect from our needs, disconnect from our true essence. And so as we move into adult relationship, it can be very easy to focus on our partner because we've never really been taught how to focus on our own needs, our own essence. And I think that's always sort of the dance in relationship, is to honor ourselves and be ourselves fully in the relationship, as we also create space to connect in a very deep and intimate way with another person. So that's sort of the overview of what we might look at today. And I just want to take a little pause just to sort of let that settle in before we move into the session. So I just invite you to connect with yourself, connect with your breath. Bring your attention down into your feet, grounding your energy. And I'd also like to invite you to take this time as your sacred time, free of any distractions or multitasking. And as we move into the session today, to just take a moment and acknowledge the group field that we are creating here that supports each of us in this transformational journey that this session offers today. And I'd also like to acknowledge the people that couldn't be here live on the call that asked to be included in today's repatterning. So we have people here live on the call, and we also have people who are being included in absentia by proxy. And also people who may stumble upon the recording on YouTube, you can set your intention to be included in the session right now as if it's happening in the present moment, because it is happening in the present moment. When we're working with energy, we work with the eternal now. So whenever you come across this session, you can participate in it and receive the shifts and the benefit. So as we begin today, I just want to check in and see what is up for you in your relationships. What has drawn you today to participate in this session? And so you can type in the chat, or you can raise your hand. Hey, Liz, is your hand raised? Oh, I got to ask you to unmute.
Sorry, I didn't raise my hand.
Oh, okay.
But since you called me, first of all, hello. I feel like I don't really have any meaningful relationships right now.
Mm-hmm. And what is that like for you?
I mean, part of it was probably because of the COVID, and during the intensity, I did feel really call people or socialize. And after that, I'm just beginning to realize that, like, I don't have people that I used to have, well, I can call and say, let's go out for coffee, or that sort of thing. And even my siblings, we hardly talk.
Yeah. And do you feel that you would like to have some meaningful relationships?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, good. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Good. Yeah. Would anybody else like to share? Lori?
Hey,
Yeah.
I can relate to the last person's what they said, although I do feel I have meaningful relationships, but I also do feel that yeah, definitely relationships with the COVID of not being able to be places where I know people and get out more. Starting I moved and I finally have a place where I feel good about having people over. So I'm starting to do that. But I see that I have great anxiety. Like my house has to be perfect before that person comes. Like I spend all day making it perfect. And I have to ask myself why I feel that need. And I'm starting to meet new people. What I find is this kind of astonishment when I meet someone that I really, really like, and I feel they like me too, and we click. It doesn't have to be romantically, just I go, well, why would they want to why would they want to be friends with me? Like especially the age thing. I'm older and I meet younger people, and I mean, I don't always question it, but I was talking to a friend about how I attract younger people into my life, and I think it's a good thing. So I think sometimes I need to distill it is, yeah, that sense of worthiness, I guess, and just what you were saying, to be able to be honor ourselves and be, in a relationship where we honor ourselves. And I would like deep relationships, and I'm very fearful. I'm very fearful of having romantic relationship, but I also would like to let down those barriers of fear. Like if that happens, to not fear that I will screw it up. Basically. Like like it's okay, if that opportunity arises, and it's okay to have that feeling of longing, not to shut it down. I think that's my usual. I'd like that to shift a little.
Right.
Yeah, sorry if I spoke
Yeah.
too long.
No, very good. And it's interesting, a little theme there about the perfectionism, needing the house to be perfect and fear that somehow you're going to screw up the relationship. You won't be perfect in that. Yeah,
Mm.
right. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to go to Shelby and then Leanne.
Okay. Um, so the getting the house ready for somebody and them rejecting you just because it's not right in their mind drives me crazy. You know what I mean? Like, I like a nice clean house, but I'm not like there all the time to clean it. And but there is something about it having nice, but I don't want to be rejected by anybody just because my house isn't a certain way or I'm not a certain way. And that just feels like judgment.
Mm,
Um, but also I typed in that I hear voices from people in the past that judge me for doing something in their opinion differently than they would have me liked it to, even as simple as picking something off the floor. And I really want to let go of those voices.
mm,
And I haven't been in a relationship in a long time. And when I was, I heard myself saying things my father would say to me or my mother would say to me. And in my next relationship, I don't want that at all. So if we can let go of that pattern, Liz, more
yeah.
power to you. And I am just starting online dating, and there's this one woman that I found that was ideal for me. And after a week, I sent her a beautiful message, and after a week, she sent me a message back saying distance, platonic. So I kind of want to learn how to take that person who I think would be ideal in my life and open up a door, not, whatever, platonic is fine, but just to get to know this person. And I just feel like I get judged by people that I want to be romantic with really fast before anything happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, that judgment, it's interesting hearing the judging voice, right? And then that gets mirrored by getting judged by the people that you're meeting. So yeah, yeah, it sounds like there's also something there, that judgment seems kind of wrapped up in the perfectionism too. So seems like we have a theme kind of emerging here. We shall see. Thank you, Shelby. All right.
Yeah.
Um, Leanne. You have to unmute.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. I have recently let go of a relationship that Liz knows about, but I got used to the crumbs. And I learned from my family. I had a emotionally distanced dad, so I have a lot of room to be overly patient. So I guess where I am at is at mutuality. I want mutuality. I want equality in my relationships. I have confidence that I have a lot to give. And it's the full moon, so coming up. So I've
Right.
been doing a lot of letting go, and then envisioning the future. But it's really about mutuality and people meeting you together where you're at. And I guess I have worked a lot, so I feel I'm good enough. I'm not beating myself up because I know what I did was on target and right. But yeah, it's mutuality and someone that will love you back, but is a giver.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting you mentioned, learning to tolerate the crumbs, that
Yes.
that sounds like an aspect of what I was talking about before, the self-sacrifice, the martyr. Yeah. Mixed in with that emotional distance that was modeled for you. So then
Yeah,
attract,
and when you're too patient
right,
with someone that's not treating you properly, it doesn't work.
right.
So it's learning to stand your ground and not being afraid to say things, which is a learning curve.
Yeah. Yeah. So releasing that, being too patient with people who are not reciprocating.
Right.
Yeah. Good. Great. Thank you.
Can I share one thing real quick again, please?
Uh-huh.
So I met this person in February, and she just seemed like the perfect friend. She has all these things going on, and she's doing that thing where she's being distant. Like I wasn't what she wanted me to be, so she distanced me. And I'm having a really hard time getting her out of my head, and she's taking up my space. And I've had relationships like that where, distant and not getting what I want. And so I really want to somehow repattern getting her out of my head and replacing it with healthier stuff, like someone that I really, really wanted to be friends with
Mm,
that doesn't feel like it's happening.
right. Right.
But I don't know for sure. But it feels like because I'm not getting what I want. I'm not getting my needs met with the friendship.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. It sounds like that's also sort of going, what is it? Maybe we'll find out, that keeps us kind of hooked into these non mutual relationships. Yeah. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Good. Good.
Can I just say that sometimes part of that is, for me, an expectation that someone's going to meet my needs. And I spoke to a friend. I said, you say you care about me, but you haven't accommodated me in this very important way. And I found out about their whole history of taking care of their parents and feeling like, I can't just take care of people all the time. And, it really gave me a perspective of like what I want or what I need doesn't always fit with what someone else, where they're coming from or their needs. So, and that can put up walls too.
Mhm.
Right. Right.
Like I think we felt closer, even though I still didn't really agree with her treatment. At least I understood, because she was very defensive, but at least I understood why she was treating me in that particular situation the way she was. And I think that's part of allowing people in, is to be able to maybe hear things that are unpleasant. Like she was saying things to me that were not pleasant to hear. She was very critical, but there was a kernel of truth within
Mhm.
that,
Yeah.
and so it's like being able to listen. Part of receiving what I need is to be able to be present to what others are feeling and needing, and taking that into consideration.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. And one of the sort of the principles of giving and receiving is to not to not expect someone to give you what they cannot.
Right.
And sometimes that's a hard terrain to navigate, so that we don't put over expectation and expect something more than what someone is able or willing to give. And and the interdependent versus the codependent part is, and then to be able to receive what they do have to give and know that we can have our needs met in other ways, maybe in other relationships or with ourselves as well. So thank you for that. Good, good. So anybody else have anything you want to put into the mix? Tisha, yes.
I feel like mine's kind of like all over the place. So I see judgment keeps coming up as a theme for everybody. And for me, I feel like I've been very overly masculine for many, many months. And my husband has been overly feminine for many, many months. And so it causes me to be really resentful towards him because I feel like naturally I'm more of a feminine core and he's more of a masculine core, but he gives me no space to be in my feminine. So I feel like this building resentment, which then puts me in a very judgmental, critical space, which I recognize as a pattern from my mom, my grandma that raised me. She's like total man hater. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to carry on that epigenetics. And so trying to like find a balance or a shift where he can be more in his masculine and I could be more in my feminine, and we could both have healthier, more harmonious lives. Which then going into perfectionism, I've worked a lot on toning down perfectionism, and I know I still have more work to do on that. However, I can see my husband being kind of on the perfectionistic side because anytime we get in a fight or like a speed bump, he gets so sad because he's like, I just want us to be happy. And like his focus is happiness, happiness, happiness. And like, I understand that there's going to be fights and it's part of like a learning curve and all that. So it's really interesting because I've been learning to be content. And meanwhile, he's still focused on this happiness, which I know in his background, his parents, they gloss over everything. Like they're just like everything goes under the rug or under the bridge. And they put on the happy facade. But I don't think he really knows what happiness is. And so again, finding that shift to be content where we are, to be present where we are, for me to be less judgmental and more compassionate, and for him to be more like decisive and action oriented. Yeah, it's all over.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, and that's, that's an important piece is being able to navigate the poles and, to move into the core. Part of knowing yourself is knowing, are you a masculine energy kind of person or are you a feminine energy person? What are you at your core, and how are you able to have that received in relationship?
Right. And
Yeah.
then it's like kind of frustrating because I mean in a year or two we want to work on bringing a kid into this life, but I'm like, dude, like I have these needs that you're not quite meeting because you're not in masculine mode, you're busy in feminine mode, and it's like I'm meeting my needs through you, which is really annoying. And I'm like, what's going to happen when we have a kid? Like, are you even going to be able to meet their needs? Like, I don't want to have a kid with you if you're not going to meet their needs. And I'm like, I give up so much of my life if I bring a child into this world because I'm also working on my business. And I'm like, and you get to sit there and be like a woman while I be the woman and the man? Like, that's not cool, you know?
Yeah. 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 And so that's, when you're building a business too, a lot of times you do go into your masculine because there's a lot of, sort of outward moving action that's needed. And yet, can you be in your masculine in your business, but then shift into the feminine in your relationship?
Right. It would be nice to have a breather from being like masculine mentality all the time. It's exhausting.
Yeah. 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 Good. So thank you for bringing that up. Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just gonna check into the chat here. Let's see. Oh, a lot of stuff in the chat here. So let's just see. Janine says everything that I've introduced today is up for her as she's pausing her relationship at this time. Yeah. Yeah. Annette says all of the above. Yes, right. Releasing fear. It's been a theme. Jeanette, my intention is to let go of the past and self-judgment with ease and grace to balance my service with others, allowing myself as well time of self-nurturing. Yeah, good, good. Robbie Lynn says she has a pattern of having difficulty making meaningful friendships, generally spending much time by myself. She also recently moved, and her intention is to develop meaningful friendships and find someone to have a relationship with. So yeah, we let go of what's hindering that. Adri says, I want to let go of bad experience of the past in relationships and not attract people that don't appreciate my gifts and that take advantage of me. Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah, beautiful. And part of that also is I'm thinking about when we have an experience in relationship that's less than optimal, that's what we don't want, we can move into the next relationship kind of like looking for the red flags, and sometimes looking for problems that maybe don't exist, or reading things into the relationship through a negative viewpoint, right? So yeah, to be able to sort of release some of that past pain and disappointment so that you can look at this new person with fresh eyes, without sort of that shadow of the past coloring your perception. So yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, so Sharon says it seems to be expected that the female member of a partnership will subjugate their needs to the partnership in order to make it work. I'd like to see what actual cooperation looks like versus the codependent one person does it all style, which leads to resentment for sure. So cooperative, independent female relationships also elude me. Yeah, good, thank you for that. And distancer pursuer relationship dynamic.
Oh, yeah.
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 Yeah, Liz says shifting unattractiveness in my field. Yeah, Janine says a deeper understanding of energies that are needed within relationship at all times. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Len says, interested in clearing ancestral limitations in my family line. Great. So yeah, looks like we're all in the right place here. Good. So let's take a pause and we'll see where we're going to go. So, Tisha, yeah, you got something?
Yeah, actually talking about that, when you said something about shadows of the past, I think inserting trust and surrender, because people are working on anxiety and fear. Because yeah, I know in my husband and my dynamic, we found out recently we had a couple of lives in the past where he killed me, and so it was interesting finding it out. Because then as soon as we found out and unpacked it, like the dynamic in our relationship shifted quite a bit to where we got a lot softer with each other. But I was like, no wonder we didn't trust each other, because yeah.
Yeah. And that's it's interesting talking about sort of past relationships, and then you have the overlay of, oh my gosh, past relationships in past lives with the same person. So there's so much to unpack there.
Yeah, and it was interesting because there's definitely parallels in this relationship that I know carried over from those lives, and those lives weren't necessarily even romantic. It's just we were contracted. And yeah, it comes up all the time, which I saw with this full moon, that the theme of scarcity and fear is coming up for a lot of people, and self-worth. And I could see it definitely coming up in our dynamic, because even when we found that out, like, I guess in one life, we were best friends, we were two guys, and he killed me for money. And then I was like, well, it's funny, joke's on you. I was like, now we're in this life, you make more money and I'm broke. Like, but it, like, the parallels come through over and over. It's very interesting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you can really, I can really feel sort of the complexity of these patterns that we're dealing with, and that we've inherited through our ancestral line, that are also have karmic aspects. So, relationships, this is what we're here. It's kind of like a relationship playground to sort of work out all of these
Good.
complex patterns within ourselves that we've inherited, that we've shared with other people in the past. Yes, no wonder that relationships can be challenging, for sure. Yeah.
I have one more that I think might be of interest to people. I'm doing a weekend where there's no sugar, there's no coffee, there's no a lot of things for about 2 weeks, and I want to have a relationship with myself without those, with ease. And I find it hard. You want those things, and why are they there? So I would like to have a relationship with myself without those things that might hinder myself in one way or the other, like as a choice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think that, that also kind of harkens back to what we talked about last month in terms of, the ways that we avoid intimacy. And sometimes, we use these substances as a way to avoid intimacy with ourselves. So thanks for bringing that up, sort of circling back from the last time. Yeah. So let's take a pause, because we'll see where we need to go here. So I'm just going to check into the group field and see the best way to approach all of these patterns. We need to start with something from orientation, problems into opportunities, an intention for a new possibility. There's something from a repatterning. We need to start with a modality. And the modality that's needed is something from spiral up, inner cultivation, family systems 1. Yeah. So we're gonna start right in with actually shifting these patterns by working with the family system. And so the best approach is something here. I have a list of options. So I'm just going to use muscle checking, tapping into the group field to see how we're going to do this. So we need something from A through E. It's something from F. It's something from G. Something from H through L, M, N. Oh, we're going to do a modality for abused children. Okay, let's see what's needed here. And so many of us have suffered abuse, whether it was intentional or not. And also, sometimes, especially as very young children, when we don't get our needs met, even if our parents meant well, that can feel like abuse to us. And so you may have suffered, some overt, horrendous abuse, or it may have been something very, very subtle that your child mind experienced as abuse. So let's see what we need here. And so in order to heal, we need to accept that that experience of abuse is part of our history. And we need to allow our parents to take their responsibility. And a lot of times what can happen, and I think Leanne kind of alluded to this, as children, we can move into a pattern where we sense our parents' emotional needs. And then we try to meet those needs versus the parent being in touch with their needs and also being open and available to meeting the child's needs. So what can happen is the roles can get reversed, whether it's literally or figuratively, energetically, where the child feels like they have to somehow take care of their parent. And that can interrupt the flow of energy through the family lineage. So if you think about the way that energy flows through the generations, it's like a waterfall going from generation to generation to generation to us. So it flows from the parent to the child. But what happens is if the roles are reversed and the child is in the parent's place, like the energy from the parent can't flow upstream. And so there's a disconnect or a block there in what the child can receive. And then what can happen is we can take that same pattern, that same inability to receive, we can take that into our adult relationships with our partners, with our friends. And so that even if support and love and sharing and intimacy is present and there for us, we may not be able to take it in. The other aspect of this particular modality, which is unique to the family constellations work, is that it's not up to the child to forgive the parent, which is it can be hard to sort of wrap your mind around that, because we all hear about the power of forgiveness and the grace that can flow to people when they forgive. But in this particular instance, if the child forgives the parents, then besides the abuse that the child suffered, they'll also carry the parent's responsibility for the parent's conduct. And so it's like there's an arrogant kind of posture that's assumed by the child, or that's implied when the child does the forgiving, because it puts the child into the parent's place. So the child receives love, forgiveness, acceptance from the parent. But then when the child is the one doing the forgiving, now the child is in the parent's place. And again, the energy doesn't flow upstream. And so in this body of work, it's important that we accept our parents, and we also allow them to take their responsibility, that we don't carry the parent's responsibility. And so the purpose of this modality is for the parents to assume their responsibility. And then for the child just to express their sorrow about the way things were and to be free of any guilt, any responsibility. So what I'd like you to do is close your eyes and center within yourself. And just sort of tune in and see whether this modality is between you and your mother, or whether it's for you and your relationship with your father. And choose one, because it's too much energy to move if you do both together. It's better to do one and then the other. And so imagine yourself there. You're facing your parent. And you're going to say to that parent out loud, you say, "Dear parent, if this is my fate, I accept it. It was ruthless, and it isn't my role to forgive you. You will have to carry the burden. And I'm just going to see, yeah, we're going to do this again. So do it again with the same parent. And drop down into your heart and see if you can say this from your heart. And again, you say, "Dear mother or father," whichever one you're focusing on. "If this is my fate, I accept it. You will have to carry the burden. I'm just going to check. We need to do this part again. Yeah, we're going to do this again. So again, just connecting into your center, relaxing into your heart. And you say, "Dear mother or father, if this is my fate, I accept it. It was ruthless, and it isn't my role to forgive you. you will have to carry the burden. We need to do this again. No. Okay. And so hold that image there. You're facing your parent, the same parent. And I'm gonna speak now. It's as if your parent is saying this to you. I assume my responsibility. Only I will have to carry the burden. I free you from all weight. You are an innocent child. And we're going to do this again. So again, the same parent says this to you. I assume my responsibility. Only I will have to carry the burden. I free you from all weight. You are an innocent child. I assume my responsibility. Only I will have to carry the burden. I free you from all weight. You are an innocent child. I'm just going to check. We need to do this again. No, that's complete. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to check. There's another modality that's needed with this. No. Okay. Good. Good. And so just notice what that feels like now. And Liz said that she couldn't say to her mom that she would have to carry the burden, but it was easier hearing her take responsibility. Yeah. So Liz, you might want to go back and do this again, maybe in a couple of days, and see what happens. Because yeah, I mean it's kind of a big ask for a little kid to say something like that to their parent, right? Most of us were not brought up in that way, that we could speak so directly and frankly to our parents. Yeah. Yeah. And so you can go back and do this modality again with the same parent, or you can do it for the other parent if you feel like that's needed, if you need it with both of them.
Could you repeat it or put it in the chat so I can write it down?
You'll have to get it from the recording.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And what about if you're the parent and you want to do that with your son that hasn't talked to you in 18 years?
Yeah, Shelby, that is a great thing that you could do for him. You just want to make sure that when you're speaking as the parent, that you're really coming from your heart, with a calm and peaceful voice, and it might take a little bit, but so you might have to do it a few times. But yeah, I think that would be very powerful for you to do it as the parent, and let your, imagine your son saying those words to you and really receiving them, that he's giving you back the responsibility.
Yeah, definitely. I
Good.
could do it once I get the recording back.
Exactly. Yeah. 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 So Janine says, oddly nailed the issue of carrying the burdens in intimate relating. Yeah. Yeah. There it is. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, Len says he feels relief, clearer, and lighter. Tisha said she switched parents as we did this, and then her voice cracked and her eyes teared and she started coughing. So there was a release. Yeah. 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 Janine says her Shashumna is vibrating with new life, the core energy. That makes total sense, because we're now receiving more of the flow of the life force, the life energy that flows to us through our family line. Yeah. Great. Good. Good. Yeah. Would anybody like to do you have any questions, or is there anything you'd like to share in what you experienced?
I just feel like I've been waiting my whole life to hear my father say that.
Yeah.
And I had that relationship with both my parents where I totally was carrying them emotionally. Although there was a heavy debt to pay because I was receiving something from them that was a very profound feeling, actually.
Good.
And the child doesn't know it's not their fault.
Right. Right.
Even when you're aware of it as an adult, you need someone to say, you don't have to carry that.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Very profound.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the power of meeting in groups to do this work. The group holds and supports us, and having somebody actually say the words, like you said, Lori, it's like, boy, I've been waiting my whole life for that and I never even knew it. And yet when you hear it, there is a relief. Yeah. So that's great. Good. Thank you. Yeah. So
I could
yeah, Shelby.
I could share. I was in my house that I was most connected with my mother in the 70s, and I saw her sitting at the table, and she couldn't sit up straight. She was kind of like always turned and moving, and so I found that interesting. But I could see the light, I could see her eyes. It was a trip. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's interesting how, you know, the images that we get, you know, oftentimes the parent, when we do this, is not, you know, not looking at us, or yeah, they're fidgeting, they're moving, you know, and that's kind of an intimacy avoidance, right? That sort of, let me dodge this. And then usually what happens is, as we go through the modality, then the parent sort of settles, looks at us as the child. So yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Good, great. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. It's always such an honor and a pleasure to see everybody every month, and to do this work together in groups. Is it's very profound, and the ripples move out from you into your relationships. And when we work with these family patterns, the family system, it's like we have downloaded a key for the rest of the family members, a new program that they can access that key and receive the healing if that is part of their path. And it happens, you know, it happens unconsciously. So I remember my teacher, Maggie Block, saying that when we do this work, we are healing the generations past and the generations forward. So know that you do this work for yourself, and the benefits ripple out from you. Beautiful. I also would like to mention that I have a group starting. It's a small group, a Zoom group, where we'll be working with these family patterns in regards to relationship. If you're interested, I'd be happy to tell you more about it. Reach out to me at et@liztobin.com, and we can set up a time to talk, and I can tell you all about it. So thank you, everybody. We will see you next month. Bye-bye. Recording stop.